The scent of yeast and sugar, once the very aroma of her dreams, now smelled like a tomb. Elara Vance stood in the pre-dawn silence of the gilded crust bakery, her palm flat against the cool, dormant oven. The final notice from Oakmont Trust lay on the flour-dusted marble counter, its crisp paper a stark white coffin for everything she'd built. In 30 days, the bank would come to change the locks, and the only thing she'd have left was the ghost of this place and the debt that had carved her hollow. Have you ever felt a dream dying in your hands? That slow, suffocating silence where hope used to live. Take a breath. You're surviving. That's enough for today. The bell above the door chimed, a sound that usually promised a customer, a connection, a reason. But it was too early. Elara didn't turn. We're not open, Mrs. Higgins. Your cranberry scones are still proofing. The footsteps that answered were not the soft shuffle of her elderly neighbor. They were sure, measured, and solid, each step a punctuation mark in the quiet. They stopped directly behind her. A shiver, cold and unwelcome, traced the line of her spine. Elara. The voice was a key turning in a lock she had sealed shut 8 years ago. It was deeper now, weathered, but it lived in the marrow of her memory. She turned slowly, her heart a frantic bird against her ribs. He stood just inside the doorway, a silhouette carved from shadow and memory, Silas Thorne. Time had been a meticulous sculptor, hardening the softness of his youth into a jawline of granite, etching the faint lines of stories untold around his eyes. He was dressed in the uniform of another world, a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than her industrial mixer. He looked like a verdict. Silas. Her voice was a rusted hinge. What are you doing here? His gaze was a physical touch, a slow, devastating inventory of the chipped tile, the silent espresso machine, the desperate weariness she knew was etched into her face. I heard you were drowning. Anger, hot and immediate, flared through the shock. From who? Who's been gossiping about my failure? Failure has a loud echo in a small town, Elara. He took one step forward, and the air in the room grew thin. Oakmont Trust is foreclosing in 30 days. You're 4 months behind on your loan. Your supplier, Crestview Foods, is preparing a lawsuit. Each fact was a stone dropped into the stillness between them. You need a lifeline. I don't need yours. She wiped her flour-dusted hands on her apron, a useless gesture of defiance. You forfeited any right to my life when you walked out that door with a suitcase and no explanation. The memory was a phantom limb, still capable of delivering a sharp, breathtaking pain. I never stopped caring about you, he said. The quiet conviction in his voice, more disarming than any shout. He reached into his jacket, a movement so agonizingly familiar it made her stomach clench, and placed a stark, embossed card on the counter. Silas Thorne, Thorne Capital Partners. When you're ready to talk, he said. His eyes, the color of a winter storm, held hers, and for a fractured moment she saw the boy who had loved her, not the fortress of a man standing before her. I'm at the Kingfisher Hotel. He turned to leave, his hand pausing on the doorframe. It's good to see you, Elara. Then he was gone. The only evidence he'd ever been there was the expensive card on the counter and the faint, lingering scent of his cologne. Vetiver and leather, a ghost in the bakery that was already haunted by her own defeat. What would you do when the architect of your heartbreak appears as the only potential savior of your ruin? Is it salvation or a more beautiful prison? I'm genuinely curious. Tell me in the comments. The day passed in a blur of forced smiles and mechanical motions. She served customers, her laughter a brittle facade. Every time the door chimed, her pulse stuttered. That night, in the cramped apartment above the bakery, the dam broke. Surrounded by a fortress of ledgers bleeding red ink, the tears finally came. They were silent, hopeless things. Pride was a currency the bank did not accept. Her fingers trembled as she picked up his card. It was thick, weighty. Thorne Capital Partners. He had built an empire while hers crumbled to dust. But his words echoed, a treacherous whisper. I never stopped caring about you. Why? The question was a ghost that had haunted her for nearly a decade. If he cared, why the silence? Why the abandonment that had shattered her world? The weight of the silence, of the looming debt, of the sheer exhaustion became unbearable. With a breath that felt like her last, she dialed the number. He answered on the second ring. Elara. He'd saved her number. Of course he had. I need to know why, she whispered into the phone. The darkness of her kitchen, a confessional. That's the price for this conversation, for any help you might offer. The truth, all of it. There was a long silence on the other end, so profound she could hear the soft sound of his breathing. All right, he finally said, his voice heavy, as if weighed down by stones. The truth. Meet me tomorrow. The old boathouse, noon. Sometimes the past isn't just a memory. It's a locked room inside you, and the key is a truth you're afraid to face. Have you ever had to unlock a painful door to step into a new future? Share your story below. Your courage might be the very thing that helps another person find their own key. The old boathouse was a skeleton of its former self, its warped boards silvered by years of sun and lake spray. It had been their place once, a secret haven where a boy with paint-stained jeans and a girl with flour in her hair had whispered dreams to the water. Now, standing before it, Elara felt like she was staring at the ghost of her own happiness. Silas was already there, leaning against a rotting post, his gaze fixed on the distant shimmering water. He'd shed his suit jacket and tie, the sleeves of his white shirt rolled up to his elbows. For a fleeting moment, he looked like the man she'd married. You came, he said, turning. His voice was softer here, the corporate edge sanded away by the lapping waves. I said I would. Elara crossed her arms, a shield over her heart. I'm here for the truth, Silas, not a reunion. He nodded, accepting the boundary. He gestured to a sun-bleached bench, but she remained standing. He sighed, running a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture she remembered from a lifetime ago. It started with my father, he began, his voice low and steady, as if he'd rehearsed this confession 1,000 times. He didn't just die of a heart attack, Elara. He died from the shame of it. He'd leveraged everything, the house, the business, his name, on a real estate deal that was a complete fraud. He was conned. When it collapsed, he wasn't just bankrupt. He was drowning in debts to people who don't send polite letters from a collections agency. Elara felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach. This was not the story she knew. The story had been a simple inheritance, a call to manage the family affairs back east. The day after the funeral, Silas continued, his eyes distant, seeing a past she hadn't been part of. I came home to our apartment. There was a man waiting for me. He didn't threaten me. He just described your daily routine. The bakery you were about to sign the lease on. The route you walked home. He knew the brand of coffee you bought every morning. He knew it all. And he made it very clear that my father's debt was now mine, and that the well-being of the people I loved was the collateral. The air left Elara's lungs. She could see it now, the terror in his young eyes, the weight of that unimaginable choice settling on his shoulders. I was 25 years old, he whispered, the words raw. And I was so scared. I looked at you, so full of light, finally ready to open your bakery after your mother's passing. I couldn't drag you into that. I thought, if I made a clean break, if I made you hate me, you'd be safe. They'd have no reason to touch you. So, I packed a bag. I wrote that pathetic note, and I left. I thought I was protecting you. The anger that had been Elara's constant companion for 8 years began to crumble, revealing an abyss of sorrow beneath. All the sleepless nights wondering what she'd done wrong, the feeling of being fundamentally unlovable. It had all been a lie, a noble, stupid, heartbreaking lie. You were an idiot, Silas Thorne, she breathed, tears welling in her eyes but not falling. A brave, self-sacrificing idiot. I know, he said, his own eyes glistening. It was the greatest mistake of my life. I spent the next 3 years working day and night, living in a single rented room, paying back every single cent with interest. I built Thorne Capital from that debt, from that fear. I made myself powerful so no one could ever threaten my life again. The moment I was free, the moment I was clean, I came back for you. 2 years ago. Elara's mind raced, sifting through memories. She saw a figure standing in the rain across the street one autumn evening. She'd felt a strange prickle of awareness, but had dismissed it. "I saw you through the bakery window," he said, his voice thick with a remembered ache. "You were laughing, handing a box of pastries to a young couple. You looked whole, at peace. After everything I'd put you through, even if you never knew why, I couldn't bring my chaos back into your world. I convinced myself your happiness, even a happiness without me, was the only thing that mattered." He finally closed the distance between them, stopping an arm's length away. "Let me help you now, Elara. Not out of guilt or some misplaced sense of duty, but because I believe in you. I always have. I never stopped. Let me be the partner I should have been 8 years ago." When a sacrifice made for love feels like a betrayal, where does forgiveness even begin? Is it in the heart or in the slow, painful rebuilding of trust? If you've ever faced a similar crossroads, your story could be a beacon for others. Share it in the comments. Elara didn't say yes. The wound was too deep, the story too vast to be healed by a single confession. But she didn't say no. A fragile, unspoken truce settled between them. The following week, Silas became a quiet fixture at the Gilded Crust. He didn't push. He didn't flaunt his wealth. He simply appeared each morning at 6 a.m., ordered a black coffee, and worked from a small table in the corner. At first, his presence was a splinter in her day, a constant, unsettling reminder of the past. But slowly, she began to see the man he was now, not the ghost he had been. He fixed the temperamental lock on the back door without being asked. He stayed late one evening to help her elderly baker, Arthur, inventory supplies, listening patiently to the old man's stories. He didn't try to charm her. He just showed up day after day, a silent promise in a world of broken ones. Then the storm arrived. It came in the form of Mr. Sterling, the representative from Crestview Foods. He was a small man with a large sense of his own importance, and he didn't come alone. 2 burly associates flanked him as he marched into the bakery during the Saturday morning rush. "Miss Vance," he announced, his voice cutting through the warm, fragrant air. "We're done waiting. This is your final opportunity. Sign this asset transfer agreement, and we'll consider the debt settled. Refuse, and I will not only file the lien and have the sheriff padlock this door by Monday, but I will also pursue a personal judgment against you. You will lose this bakery and everything else." The chatter in the bakery died. Every customer stared. Elara felt the blood drain from her face, her hands turning to ice. This was it, the end of the line. Before she could form a word, a chair scraped softly behind her. Silas stood. He didn't move quickly, but his calm was more intimidating than any bluster. He walked to the counter, placing himself slightly between Elara and Mr. Sterling. "Mr. Sterling," Silas said, his tone conversational, almost pleasant. "I've recently acquired Crestview Foods. The board felt it was time for new leadership. As of 9 a.m. this morning, you no longer work for the company. Your final paycheck will be mailed. I suggest you leave now." The color vanished from Sterling's face. He sputtered, You can't. I don't believe you." Silas didn't raise his voice. He simply pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and held it out. A man's voice, crisp and authoritative, came through the speaker. "Yes, Mr. Thorne. The transition is complete. Mr. Sterling's access has been revoked." Sterling looked from the phone to Silas's impassive face, his own a mask of sheer terror. He stammered an apology, turned on his heel, and fled, his 2 associates scrambling after him. The bakery was utterly silent. Then a single person began to clap. Soon, the entire room erupted in applause. Elara stood frozen, staring at Silas. Relief, shock, and a surge of something that felt dangerously like awe warred within her. You bought my supplier." He turned to her, the storm in his eyes replaced by a quiet intensity. "I bought your building from the landlord yesterday. I paid off the bank this morning. The Gilded Crust is safe, Elara. It's yours, free and clear." Tears she could no longer control streamed down her face. "You can't just buy all my problems, Silas. This was my fight, my failure. You don't get to just erase it." "I'm not erasing it," he said, his voice fierce but low, for her ears only. He stepped closer, his hands gripping the counter on either side of her, caging her in, not with threat, but with raw, desperate emotion. "I'm fighting with you. For the first time in 8 years, I'm standing beside you instead of watching from the shadows. I told you, I'm not leaving you to fight alone. Not ever again." He searched her face, his gaze dropping to her lips for a heartbeat before returning to her eyes. "I don't want to own your bakery, Elara. I want to own a future with you. I love you. I never stopped. Not when I left. Not during those 3 years of hell. Not in the 5 years since. I love you, and I am done being afraid." Love in the aftermath of pain isn't a gentle whisper. It's a battle cry in the ruins, a choice to build something new from the wreckage. What would it take for you to trust a love that returned from the past? Your thoughts are so valuable to this community. The applause had faded. The customers had politely returned to their pastries, giving them a semblance of privacy. Elara looked at this man, this boy, this stranger, this savior, this heartbreaker. She saw the weight of his sacrifice, the depth of his regret, and the terrifying, unwavering certainty in his eyes. Her heart, a fortress of scar tissue and stubborn pride, felt a crack so profound she thought it might break her in two. And through that crack, a single, undeniable truth bloomed. She still loved him too, but the words wouldn't come. Not yet. The trust was still too fragile, the wound too fresh. She reached out, her flour-dusted fingers, gently brushing against his hand on the counter. It was the first touch she had willingly offered him in 8 years. It was a tiny thing, a mere whisper of contact, but it was a beginning. Silas's breath hitched. He turned his hand over, palm up, an unspoken question. Elara looked at his open hand, then back into his stormy, hopeful eyes, and knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The hardest choices often come after the battle is won. Now, Elara must decide if she can trust a hand that once let her go. What do you think she should do? Your perspective could change everything. Join me for the final, heartbreakingly beautiful conclusion in the next part. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the moment her choice is made. The silence in the bakery after the last customer left was a living thing, thick with the scent of cinnamon and unresolved history. Elara's hands still tingled where her fingers had brushed against Silas's. That small electric contact had shattered an 8-year-old dam, and now a flood of emotions threatened to pull her under. She busied herself with wiping down the already spotless counter, her movements sharp and nervous. "You shouldn't have done that, Silas. Buying Crestview, the building. You can't just throw money at a problem and make it disappear." "It wasn't the money, Elara," he said quietly, leaning against the counter, giving her space but refusing to leave. "It was the only weapon I had in that moment to stop a man from destroying you. I would have done it if I'd had $10 or 10 million. It was never about the money." His words disarmed her. This wasn't a corporate takeover. It was a rescue mission, and she had been the objective. "What happens now?" she whispered, finally meeting his gaze. "You own my supplier. You own my building. You own my debt. You essentially own me." A pained expression crossed his face. "Is that what you think? Elara, look at me." He waited until her eyes locked with his. "I will sign every single asset over to you tomorrow. The building, the cleared debts, everything. It will be in your name and yours alone. No strings, no conditions." Her breath caught. "Why would you do that?" "Because I don't want to own your bakery. I want to own a life with the woman who runs it. I want to earn my place back in it, not buy my way in." Have you ever been offered a gift that felt too big to accept? A second chance that seemed to cost someone else everything? The courage to accept can be the hardest part of the journey. In the weeks that followed, a new rhythm began. Silas was true to his word. The deeds were transferred. The gilded crust was irrevocably, legally Elara's. But Silas stayed. He came in the mornings, but now he didn't just sit. He rolled up his sleeves. He learned how to knead dough without toughening it. His large, capable hands surprisingly gentle. He refinished the old hardwood floors, the scent of varnish mixing with sugar and yeast. He was rebuilding her world, board by board, and in doing so, he was slowly, painstakingly rebuilding her trust. He didn't try to kiss her again. He didn't press for a declaration. His courtship was in the quiet, consistent acts of service, in the way he memorized how she took her tea, in the way he stood as a silent, solid buffer between her and any potential stress. He was proving his constancy, showing her that the man who had run was gone, replaced by a man who would stand his ground. One evening, they were alone, bathed in the warm glow of the bakery's lights, finalizing plans for the expanded patio. Elara looked at him, really looked at him. There was flour dusting his dark hair and a smudge of chocolate on his cheek. He was arguing passionately for her original vision against a contractor's more expensive suggestion. He was fighting for her dream, not his. The last of her resistance crumbled. "Silas," she said softly, interrupting him. He turned, his brow furrowed in concentration. "What is it? Do you not like the stone? We can find another." "I love you." The words hung in the air, simple and absolute. They sucked all the sound from the room. Silas froze. The contractor's estimate fluttered from his hand, forgotten. For a long, terrifying moment, he just stared at her, his expression unreadable. Then a shudder ran through him, and he took a stumbling step back, his hand rising to cover his mouth. His eyes, wide and disbelieving, filled with tears. Elara's heart plummeted. Had she misread everything? "Silas, I'm sorry, don't you dare take it back," he choked out, his voice raw and broken. He dropped his hand, and she saw the tracks of tears on his cheeks. "Don't you dare! Do you have any idea, Elara, for 8 years, the only thing I've prayed for, the only thing I've worked for, was to one day be worthy of hearing you say that again. I thought I'd lost the right to ever hear it." He closed the distance between them in 2 strides, his hands coming up to cradle her face, his touch reverent. "I love you. I love you more than I did the day I left. I love the woman you've become. I love your strength, your stubbornness, your goodness. I love you." This time, when he kissed her, it was nothing like the first desperate kiss. It was slow. It was deep. It was a homecoming. It tasted of tears and forgiveness, and a future she had stopped daring to imagine. It was a promise, sealed not just with passion, but with a profound, unshakable certainty. Forgiveness isn't an event. It's a landscape you choose to build a new home upon. Has there been a moment in your life where a single choice changed the entire map of your future? 6 months later, the gilded crust was unrecognizable. The renovation was complete, blending the old charm with new, elegant touches. It was thriving, a vibrant heart of the community. But the real change was in the atmosphere. It was a place of joy, filled with light and laughter. Elara stood in the center of it all one morning before opening, watching the sun stream through the new, large windows. She felt a pair of arms slide around her waist from behind, and she leaned back into Silas's solid warmth. "Happy?" he murmured into her hair. "More than I ever thought possible," she said, turning in his arms to face him. He smiled, but there was a nervous energy in his eyes. "Good, because I have one more proposal for you." Her breath hitched. He slowly lowered himself to one knee right there on the bakery floor, amidst the flour and the morning light. The bakery that had been her sanctuary, her ruin, and was now their shared redemption. He didn't have a velvet box. Instead, he held up a simple worn silver key. "Elara Vance," he said, his voice steady and clear, filled with a love that had weathered the worst of storms. "This is the key to our first apartment, the one I walked out of. I've carried it every day for 8 years as a reminder of my greatest failure and of the only thing that ever truly mattered, you." He took her hand, placing the cool, tarnished key in her palm and closing her fingers over it. "I don't want to go back to who we were. I want to move forward with who we are, a man who is no longer afraid, and the brilliant, beautiful woman who taught him how to be brave. My partner, my best friend, my love. Will you marry me?" Tears of pure, unadulterated joy streamed down Elara's face. This was not a proposal of polished diamonds and empty promises. This was a proposal of tarnished silver and hard-won truths. It was perfectly, uniquely them. "Yes," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. "Yes, Silas Thorne, 1,000 times, yes." As he stood and kissed her, the early sun illuminating them in a golden halo, Elara knew that some love stories aren't about perfect timing. They are about imperfect people who, against all odds, find their way back to each other. They are about scars that become strengths and wounds that become wisdom. They are about choosing every single day to build a new beginning from the ashes of the past. Her dream hadn't died. It had simply been waiting for them to rebuild it together. And so, their story becomes a part of you now. A reminder that even in the darkest nights, a new dawn is waiting. What new beginning is calling to your heart? What dream have you put aside that deserves a second chance? Your journey is the next great story. Share your hope in the comments, and let's build a community where every ending is a new beginning. If this tale found a home in your heart, please subscribe. Our next story of courage and redemption is waiting for you.